So I have about 15 minutes to basically bitch, complain, moan, rant, or just talk about Call of Duty and how I don't know, maybe this honeymoon phase of Call of Duty might be ending shortly for me, or maybe there'll be something that can kind of, because I didn't get the season pass, so I don't really care, so I don't get to play that Carrington map, which I don't really give a fuck about anyway to begin with. Um, but just like I'm trying to figure out like what I like. I mean, I like the aspect of you doing those challenges and getting like I mean, as of right now, supply drops are cosmetic, and I got some cool like cosmetic weapons, which I'll be showing in the first like not 3 minutes worth of a video at the gun range, and then I got some actual gameplay. So I got a couple of them that are really, really neat. I got one for the Type 100, which is pretty sweet, and I got, ironically, two shotgun variants and something else. Nothing really too cool. Like, I really wish I could do the MP40, get something cool for the MP40, or, like, I mean, I got the PPHS. I got, like, two of those. There are, like, I think one is heroic, the other one's, epic or some shit. Which really, like, all it really does is just gives you XP. As of right now, it's not that the weapon is better than any other weapon, but as a variant, because it is a weapon variant, it just gives you more XP if you have that weapon variant. So in a way, and then the news is like on in game, you click over and there's a news feed thing. Yeah, COD points are coming. Let me actually. This is kind of disappointing that they're almost like they should just stealthily put this in just so people can find it themselves. And actually, it's no longer there. But yesterday it said something about COD points coming in, blah blah blah, and now it's not here. Now it just says get season pass. I still have issues. I can't. There's no people in my headquarters. I'm by myself. I can't do that 1v1 thing that I kind of wanted to try, which is pathetic and pointless. So I'm like, whatever. But if I was to go and talk about the weapons that I would recommend anybody and everybody to use, the weapons that I find that are most effective depending on what you're playing, depending on how you're playing, your play style. Here it's almost kind of like they made really couple of good weapons and then really shitty weapons, and they're basically like, oh look, just everybody guess which ones are the best weapons with what attachments, what perks, and for what division or whatever, and then go ahead and just only spam and use those, and all the other weapons don't fucking matter. Unless we start to introduce weapon variants to make those other shitty weapons a little bit better and more useful, and I think that's what might be happening, and it's kind of pathetic to say it, to begin, trying to go down that route. I'm kind of under the weather, so I'm a little bit upset because like I hate being sick because it's just crappy to feel sick and be sick. But one of the weapons that I strongly recommend, and I fucking love this weapon. I'm kind of peeking at it right now, here on the TV. And it's the STG-44. What I recommend with it is, obviously you need a quick draw, which, gives you that little oomph when it comes to aiming down the sights. I would recommend a red dot, or the whatever, it's a reflex sight or whatever. Because they, unfortunately they really did not have reflex sights back then. The telescoping sights, I think they actually did have those, but those were so rare that I think only I don't even know what percentage of the entire military on all sides had anything remotely close to that. I think only special soldiers in very high ranks actually had those kind of weapons. Even the STG-44, only very special high up officers in the SS actually had those weapons. And then somebody a little bit less of a rank than that officer would have the MP40, and everyone else had the Kar 98 basically without the scope. It was just like a bolt action rifle. So yeah, with the amount of people that are actually using the STG and other weapons, and here's a couple other weapons that I strongly recommend. I don't have it currently unlocked because I didn't think about, hey, let's permanently unlock this. This is I feel kind of ridiculously stupid that I didn't do this. But the BAR or the BAR, that weapon is strongly recommended for anybody that really wants to do some serious damage. That weapon, the damage output on that weapon is ridiculous. I strongly recommend anybody and everybody and their mother to fucking use this weapon when they play Call of Duty, because this, even though it has went through a little bit of a nerf, it's still very useful and still very powerful, and yet it should be that weapon that everyone's like, yeah, this weapon is like literally the most OP piece of fucking shit, because in real life, not that many actual U.S. military personnel carry this weapon because it was very clunky and very heavy, and it was really, like it could get really like messed up and dirty. But here's the thing though, they didn't make that many of them, and only higher ranking people actually had them. So I mean, obviously they can't make that game, the game in that kind of fashion where only you get to a certain rank and you have to stay at a certain rank to only use that weapon. If you're any higher or lower, you can't use it or some shit. I don't know. Like it's kind of stupid. The same thing with the Thompson. Only like certain officers or captains use the Thompson. So like most people use like the M1 Garand. And then, like, you look at weapons like the M1941, like a very small percentage of people actually use that. But now back to the actual point of this whole video is to tell you which weapons I strongly recommend for both core and hardcore, depending on what you play and what you like to play. You can use the M1 Garand, but I feel like the hit detection with the M1 Garand, it's kind of sketchy. It almost feels like sometimes I hit, the hit detection is perfect. And sometimes it feels like I'm shooting at the guy, but nothing is connecting. So I feel like, I don't know, is that like some kind of internal lag, or what the fuck is that? That needs to be fixed. And then I thought about, how would they go about creating a perfect hit detection system? And I thought about when I was back in school, like in 5th grade, which was years and years and years ago. I mean, that's like what, like 20 years ago or some shit. So I'm thinking like, wait a minute, okay. We had graphing calculators, and or maybe I was in middle school, I don't remember, but we had these, I think it was middle school, we had these graphing calculators, and there's a x-axis and y-axis. So if they take and, do a cutout of a soldier, typically how he would be represented, in the game as a model, a 3D model, and they put it on an x and y-axis, and they crop and cut him out, they can extend just a little bit past his clothing, the hit detection, and this is just ever so slightly, because if you put it exactly on the body, there might be some kind of issue where it's going to be incredibly hard to hit the target, and then they have to make the aim assist more stronger, and when you make the aim assist more stronger, people bitch that weapons are overpowered, and then they nerf weapons that they don't necessarily need to. That's what always has been the problem. A lot of people don't realize this. That is the literal problem here with the hit detection system. A lot of people don't realize what work it takes to actually make that. At least that's what my prediction is, and that's how I would go about creating a perfect hit detection, is just ever so slightly go past that, clothing barrier, so the hit detection is a little bit extended past the clothing, so that, then you don't have to have such a strong aim assist. And then that enables the whole idea of people being more challenged and actually having what they call weapon skills. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said weapon skills. It basically divides the good players and the bad players, and the bad players are no longer playing the game because they're tired of being continuously, on the bottom and losing and getting like destroyed and shit like that. And then the good players stay, and then the game is fun because there's always a challenge, and no one's, it's just funner that way when there's more challenge to the game that way. So I would recommend the STG. Primarily STG for hardcore and core. The M1941 I would recommend just primarily for hardcore. It's pretty good there. It's good in core, but not as good. The FG42, since it has a slow rate of fire, would not recommend that on hardcore, but would strongly recommend that in core. And obviously the bar, I would strongly recommend the bar. It is fantastic. Overall, and I think if you put rapid fire on it, if it has that attachment, which I don't remember, it makes the weapon ridiculous and overpowered completely, which is cool. And then obviously you have the SVT40 once you prestige that particular division. It is a 2-shot kill, but once again, kind of like the M1 Garand, the hit detection seems kind of like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's really terrible. It really depends. It's almost like how the game feels that fucking day, And then now we're gonna go down SMGs. The PPHS of 41 or 41 is probably the one that a lot of people say, yeah, it's a great weapon. It's a good fire rate. You can really, hip fire that weapon, and it's a hip fire machine. It's the best weapon to hip fire with, so it's really good for hardcore. For core, it's basically you're spraying such a tremendous amount of bullets, at a target that that you're probably going to come up on top in that gunfight. I do like the grease gun because it has a little like a decent amount of damage, but it has you need to have rapid fire on it, and hardcore and core it's good on. Type 100, I would more likely recommend this on hardcore with rapid fire, and that weapon is completely a beast. The WAFFE 28, which I don't even want to pronounce. That's such a stupid weird name. That weapon is another hipfire machine, but it has such a recoil pattern that it's kind of hard to master and learn. It is a cool gun, but I would say increase the damage of that weapon and decrease the fire rate to like an 8 or a 9 and increase the weapon damage. That would make that weapon perfectly balanced. The Thompson is overall kind of like a middle point kind of a thing. It's in the middle. It's good, but it's bad. It has its ups and downs. The hit detection on this weapon, for some reason, it's either you are very pinpoint accurate with it or you suck with it, and it's kind of like you can't find a middle ground really. But technically, out of all the SMGs, it is like the middle ground SMG, at least in my personal opinion. I'm going off strictly personal opinions and experience with the weapon, so this may vary depending on your playstyle and how you go about playing the game and everything. I love the MP40. I always add a little bit extra, rapid fire on it, just to give it that little extra punch, because overall, with the damage and the fire rate that it already has with rapid fire, this weapon is a machine. LMGs, I really don't use. The brand from a distance, if you're just sitting back and picking people off, it's a good weapon, but it has such a low rate of fire that I really wouldn't recommend that fucking tanky, trashy ass weapon to anyone. I would feel like I'm sending you into a suicide mission if I tell you to attempt to use this weapon, because I did, and it's a headache. It really is a fucking headache to use this weapon. The MG15 is probably a weapon that I strongly recommend, because this damage is lower, but it has a great rate of fire, and with just the appropriate amount of attachments, it's actually overall a pretty decent weapon. Taking out multiple guys, especially if you get those, swing on them burst. And obviously the MG42, which I have not unlocked. I'm almost there. I'm definitely going to do like its own like little talk about it, type of review. But I've used it as a turret weapon, so it's pretty good. But I feel like it might need a few attachments to be versatile on its own. When it comes to snipers, the only sniper that for hardcore, I would recommend the Carbon. And for the just regular core, I would recommend the KR98. For shotguns, the combat shotgun is probably the only one that I would strongly recommend. And then obviously the toggle action, which is a semi-auto. Shotgun, that's another one that's kind of like the modern day Brecci, or the olden day Brecci, I should say. That's another one that I would strongly recommend for hardcore primarily. And that's probably like the overview for weapons. Now, going into divisions, it really doesn't matter. I use them all, just to prestige them and unlock all the special weapons that come with it. Select the basic training part of the game. I strongly recommend for anybody to reduce flinch. I would recommend primed. That's your go-to thing. And then, Requisitions. It basically says score streaks do not reset on death, but cost more and can only be earned once. If you want to earn really high streaks and you're a point whore, as in if you're playing domination and all you're doing is capturing points, you really don't care about KD, and you want to gather really awesome score streaks. If you have a team that runs that, everybody can get really powerful score streaks, and you can completely decimate the other team, regardless if you die or not. So this could be very useful, but I feel like this might be kind of overpowered. But it really is not, because it really takes a lot for you to, the difference is very significant. Like something that takes, let's say, 600, score to get it would take like well over 1,000 to get it with that particular, basic training perk thing. So yeah, those are the only real perks that I recommend. The other ones I really haven't used. Primed, it was the only one I used because the whole idea of an extra attachment on your weapon really won me over, and then I saw a video about it because it said it reduces flinch, so I'm like, that is probably the go-to thing, especially in core, because flinch is so ridiculous that it's something that needs to be taken out of the game. It's too ridiculous. It's a sledgehammer game thing. Other Call of Duties did not have as much flinch as this game. and that's the only thing that irritates me. On the Mint, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Peace!